Welcome to our 167th Right and Left Discussion Forum. We hold our televised discussions twice monthly to demonstrate the value of civil, productive, open-minded political dialogue. Today, our panel will discuss this year's presidential election. Our panel opens with Ron Chamberlin, retired senior research chemist, Bryan Laubaugh, president of R&B Financial Services, and Patty Haskins, member of the Wadsworth City Council. Ron, we'll open with you. What did you think about the election?
Okay, am I on?
Yes.
Okay. Well, John, I'm not surprised. I'm disappointed, particularly in Ohio. Although, you know, I have a whole bunch of thoughts going through my head at this point. I'm gratified to see that, I didn't get a chance to look this morning, but just gratified to see that Trump does not seem to be pulling ahead as he had hoped to, in spite of what he says, having won already. But so a number of things going on. In Ohio, I would have voted for our local representative, Mr. Gonzalez. I thought he did a good job, probably deserved another thing. But as I said last time we spoke, I've just been so thoroughly disgusted with the Republican Party on the national level that I just couldn't do it. But okay, I'm not unhappy that he's won. Nationally, I follow a fellow on Facebook who's very acerbic, to just use as mild a word as I can think of. This guy posted yesterday, he says, I can only comment that 50% of the people or so in this country would have been the Germans who supported the Nazis. Now, that's a bit extreme. I don't agree with that. There's certainly a lot more nuance than that. I have another friend who said, what's going on with Ohio? Does morality not count anymore? Again, I think it's more nuanced than that. From what I can understand from reading comments from conservative friends and conservative people in the media, that there was a swell for the pro-life, pro-choice thing among some of the evangelicals. But that's all very confusing to me, is about why people could really support the man. Just hold it for the moment, the conservative versus liberal in terms of the whole national output. I'll go on. We can talk about that all day. But it just really disturbs me that people could support Trump at all. That's just my own opinion. And I'm going to try to forgive the people who voted for Trump. That's part of my duty as from my religious upbringing. It ain't going to be easy. I'm a human being. And for my friends and relatives who voted that way, I know that I'm going to look at them a little differently, as I did last time, and it's gotten worse. So I think overall the process seems to so far have been pretty peaceful around the country, in spite of all the nonsense that went on beforehand. All of the caravans, people were reported from around the country. There in Texas when they tried to block the bus for the campaign bus, that kind of thing. So far, it's not seems to be happening. I don't see any evidence of it around in the news that there's any kind of a groundswell of excuse me of problems that way. I voted. Filled out my absentee ballot and then rode up to the Board of Elections and deposited it in a box outside and was met with cheerful faces. Saw a reasonably sized line outside there. It was on about the third day that it was open. Followed up later on, and there was no problem. The ballot had been accepted, and at that point, it had not been counted. They weren't counting any of them, but I was very pleased that went on okay. Some friends of mine who did vote in person said there was no problem. There was when at the time of day they went, there wasn't any particular wait, and they felt safe enough. And they're my age, so they're being very cautious about the COVID. No, I think that sums it up for me. I'm not surprised at things going on, particularly in Ohio. I'm not surprised at that. Disappointed that some of my people, I have my list here and I'm checking as results come in, and some of my judges and so forth have won, and so that's good. It's not all bad for me, but uh,
Well, Brian, I have an idea that your opinion is a little different.
Well, I think my opinion is a little differently because I've never, ever told anyone that I was a friend with that was a Democrat that I just couldn't like them anymore because they voted for Obama or they voted for whatever. I've never let politics and the tribalism that seems to have been injected in this go that far. I mean, my neighbors had Biden signs up. It didn't bother me. You know, I know people. I know Patty. I think of Patty as a friend. I'm pretty sure she didn't vote for Trump, but I'm not making a list of people that I need to reevaluate because of how they voted. It's unfortunate that we've reached that stage in our body politic where when Dianne Feinstein and Senator Lindsey Graham basically hug each other after the Supreme Court thing, that the left went apeshit on her. I'm sorry to use that term, but I don't know any other term to use. That, you know, she needed to be canceled. And I don't think that's healthy for anybody, no matter what party you're in. If you're a Republican and you're talking, you know, Trumpism or all that kind of stuff, or if you're a Democrat and you're talking progressive stuff, that's not healthy. And that has to be something that we as a people come together and say, you know, we can't have that type of vitriol that just cankers people. I mean, it's not good. And whatever the outcome of the election is, and I'm sure there's going to be some litigation. There's been some things go on. It didn't happen in Ohio. I think Ohio, this is the first time I was mentioning earlier that I worked in the polls. The process was safe. It was confidence building. The people that worked there, you know, there were Republicans and Democrats. The Democrats, you know, were great people. I made new friends across the aisle. I think they made new friends with me. And at the end of the day, it is what it is. And you know, obviously, there seems to be a situation that occurs where people have to hate one another. And I just don't think that's healthy when it comes to politics. I don't think it's worth that. Not that doesn't mean I'm not energized about my candidate or about my party or about the principles that I believe, you know, Republicans espouse. But I'm willing to give the people on the other side the deference that they need and the respect that they need. And you know, let's take it out at the ballot box. So I think in Ohio, the election went as smooth as possible. You know, all the reports were in. I do have some questions. You know, I'm not a statistics person, but it just seemed a little odd at some of the results that have been coming in from some of the battleground states. I don't know the process that well in Pennsylvania or Wisconsin or Michigan or North Carolina. I don't understand, you know, how they voted in Arizona, the difference between a pen and a Sharpie. I remember voting in elections where we had the punch card, Patty, if you remember that. You put it, you slid it in and you punched it, and there was question that the person didn't, you know, put the ballot in correctly. I get that. But, you know, at the end of the day, they'll certify whatever, and whoever wins, wins. And if it's Joe Biden, it's Joe Biden. I'm not going to, you know, spend the next 4 years walking around in a funk. I'm going to do my best to move things forward locally. And I still hope the people that I consider friends that are on the other side of the aisle consider me a friend, and I consider them friends. So that's where I'm sitting right now.
Patty, I saw an article in the Wall Street Journal showing two families that live next door to each other. One of them had a Trump sign in the yard, and the other one had a Biden sign in the yard. But they each had another sign pointing to their neighbor that said, "We love them." I imagine that's the kind of a sign you'd put in your yard if you lived next door to somebody who supported the opponent.
I probably would. That reminds me, Geraldo Rivera is that situation. He's an ardent Republican and his wife is an ardent Democrat. And they have opposing signs in their front lawns. And he's alluded to that many times on television. John, my only concern is the, at this point, if this is Thursday, November 5th at a little after 9 in the morning, and we still don't know who the president is, and it still could go either way. But the repeated attempts at this point to undermine the veracity of the election and the challenges that are being made before the election is even called. I have huge concerns with, I noticed there's, the big push in Pennsylvania is that observers aren't allowed in to watch the vote counting. And for that reason, it has to be crooked. As Bryan will attest to, now that he's worked the polls, he realizes that you really don't do anything of any consequence when working at the poll or counting ballots unless there's a member of both parties there. So to say that one side is not being represented in the count is not true. Now, will they allow 100 people to come into a room and watch? No, because to be an observer, there are certain steps that you have to go through, and there's certain protocols that you have to follow. You cannot walk in and try to intimidate those people that are doing the counting. But we need to have a little more faith in our boards of election in the fact that they do run a bipartisan type setup. The big complaint in Michigan is that they should have stopped counting the votes. And there were protests outside of the Detroit Board of Elections where they were counting ballots, saying that they needed to stop counting the votes, which is ludicrous. 18 months ago, the Secretary of State in Michigan had attempted, because of COVID, to allow the members of the Board of Election to start counting all of those mail-in votes early, or at least getting them sorted so that they could be counted on election day and they wouldn't have the delay afterwards. And this is what President Trump was pushing for, that everything should be done right away. Well, for 18 months, the Democratic Secretary of State tried to convince the Republican-held legislature, both House and Senate, to make a change in that the boards of elections could start sorting those and they didn't have to wait till the last minute to count the votes. And the Republicans said no. Well, then when they do that, then they say, okay, now we have to stop counting and we can't count those votes anymore. There are huge claims in Pennsylvania, like I said, of the fact that Republicans aren't allowed to watch the count. There are Republicans there. They're sitting at the table doing the counting in equal number along with the Democrats. So to say that they're being shut out of that, I don't agree with. You had Mayor Giuliani making a big push on this. The interesting comment I heard this morning was Kellyanne Conway. And it was interesting because the big push from President Trump before, as I said, was that we should have the results of an election the day, on election day. By midnight, you should know who did it. And then Kellyanne Conway this morning said, what's the big rush? We can wait a few days for the results. Wait till all of these court cases are handled. We don't need to know the results yet. So it's kind of like a complete turn of thought. I am concerned because of this, that when the election is over and certified, that we will have a large percentage of our population that will claim that the election was a fraud. And it should not be taken as a fact that this is who is the president, no matter which side it is. And that will only lead to more divisiveness within the country.
You know, I'd like to just say something along those lines, that for the last 3.5 years, we've only heard about the Russian collusion and how the Russians affected the election and all that kind of stuff. So we've got to break from that. One of the things that I remember very distinctly was the Bush versus Gore. It was December until the Supreme Court said, you got to stop counting the votes in Florida with the if you remember that, the hanging chads and all that kind of stuff. So there is a process in place, and I think we let it run. I'm all for finding out at night. I don't know why, you know, when I compare how things were run in Ohio, why other states can't do that.
It's because of when we can in Ohio coordinate and start counting
Right.
the mail-in votes.
And
It's different in every
yeah.
state.
But
Pennsylvania, they
correct.
can't do it
Yeah.
early.
Yeah, but here again, this is the difference between how Pennsylvania runs their election and how Ohio runs their election, how Michigan runs their election, Wisconsin. I think in is it Wisconsin, they have you know, you can register when you vote. You know, you don't have that 30 days or whatever before the
Yeah,
election.
I think you can still do it on the same day as the election.
Same day, you can go in and register. That's what, you know,
It's
people are
not the
saying.
only state, but yeah.
People are saying, wait a second, you have more votes than you have people that have been registered, you know? So I think there's some things around the edges that we could probably all tune up on. But I think when you look at Florida, when you look at, and no matter how the vote went in Florida or no matter how it went in Ohio, the process was sound. It was a sound process. People that came to vote, people that put their absentee ballot in. I went to the Board of Elections. I know people that did absentee. There were you know, ways to make sure that your vote counted. I just don't know why, you know, we can't have sort of a standardized thing. From what I understand, in the little, you know, training that I went through, you know, when they stop taking the ballots at 2 o'clock on Monday, that's when they can start tallying them. Now, maybe they can do it before, but then at 7:30 on Tuesday night, they plug in the numbers, and that's where you get the absentee and the early
See,
voting.
that's the difference. Ohio, you can do that.
Yeah.
And in other
yeah.
states where they have tried to, like Pennsylvania and
Yeah.
Michigan, certain legislatures have blocked that
Yeah,
and
yeah.
have not allowed that change.
Yeah,
I
Do you think it
agree
would,
with
do
you. I
you
think
think it would,
they should start doing it early, you know.
Yeah.
do you think it would solve a lot of problems if we
Yeah.
had standardized processes
Yeah.
coast to coast?
Yeah, I do. I think they should have a template that says, here's what, you know, here's what we would like to see, and do it. I mean, I think Ohio, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, I think the process was very sound and very safe, and even in a COVID environment, I don't think anybody walked in there and felt like, oh my gosh, I'm going to get COVID. The poll workers were protected. You know, I had the job to go. We had four curbside voting. I felt like I was in a nuclear facility. You know, I needed a Geiger counter.
Did you have to do any? Were there any
Yeah.
curbside
Yeah,
voters?
I had four. We had 4 curbside votes. I had the shield, the extra heavy rubber thing, gloved up. You know, kind of like throwing the pen at them. But I guess the point I'm trying to make is there's got to be a better way for some of these states.
Well, I think, you know, Ron often points out the problems that we have with gerrymandering. And I don't think there's any reason to suspect that the party in power in a state is not going to manipulate the election laws in order to give their party an advantage the way they do with gerrymandering.
Yeah.
And as long as we've got the states making their own rules, we're going to have a problem, I think. Personally, I can't think of one single good reason not to have voting on election day only and the absentee ballots. Everybody gets a fair chance to vote the way they want with those two options. I don't know why we have to have early voting and mass mailing and all the other stuff. We're just opening things up for problems.
Well, they're looking for that advantage because it's certain voters tend to vote more on election day and certain voters want to vote early. So whichever
Well, they can
whichever
vote
way
early
that
by, they
skews,
can,
that's the way the party feels then.
yeah, but they can vote early with an absentee ballot.
Right.
Yeah.
I had
But there's people that are against that. But see, then, absentee ballot, it depends upon whether there's a reason. Some states still require, I believe
Oh, there
Texas.
are only 4 states now that make you give your reason for having.
I think
absentee.
Texas is one of them that requires a reason for, and that's a large state with a lot of electoral votes, that still requires even in COVID, even required that people give a reason to use, to file an absentee ballot.
And if somebody doesn't like the reason, they reject the ballot.
Uh-huh. Well, they don't get the ballot in the first place. They apply for it, just
Oh,
like
I
you do
see,
in
I got it.
Ohio. And
Yeah.
then if they don't like, if the reason is not sound, and they said that COVID would not be one of the reasons.
Oh,
So,
I didn't know that. Now, skipping ahead, what do you think is going to happen once a victor is declared? Do you think the civil unrest is just going to go ape poopy, like Bryan said?
No.
going to
I-
go away, really, because I think there's going to be some deep-seated resentment out there. And
No
again,
matter who wins.
I don't feel that. I don't look at my friends differently.
I don't think there'll be any looting on the Republican side. I don't think anybody is gonna go in and basically take a dishwasher or another big screen TV or need a loaf of bread. I really doubt if there'll be any sort of looting or civil unrest on the Republican
Brian,
side.
I think that's
I
unfair
don't
to
see
say that all looters are Democrats.
Well,
So
I'm just saying that they boarded up
I
most-
highly doubt that all looters are Democrats because
New
most of
York-
those looters.
New York. Well,
Politics is far
let
from
me
their
let me
mind.
step back and say that they maybe prefer Democrats because
No,
they
they're
boarded up
criminals.
D.C., they boarded up New York City, parts of Chicago got boarded up, and Los Angeles had stuff. I just don't see. I've never seen in my years a Republican riot. I've never seen that. And I'm sorry, I'll take it back. Maybe the Democrats have some point in time where the Republicans really went crazy. But I don't think that. I'm still gonna, when I see Patty, I'm gonna give her a hug. If there's COVID,
No,
I'll
you
wear my
won't because
mask.
COVID's still around.
I'll give her the bump. I'll give her the high five and say, better luck next time when we meet on the battlefield of balloting. We'll get by. We'll figure it out. So,
Yeah.
Okay, in our last few minutes, I'd like to discuss the Electoral College. What do you? No, you can't. No, you can't take night courses at the Electoral College.
They have a football team.
I've changed my mind on it. I'm ready to get rid of it. I'm ready.
Tell me why.
I just am.
You're going to be anxious to see New York and California run everything?
What was that, John?
Aren't you concerned that New York and California will have a disproportionate impact on the election?
If I'm a person, I want my vote to count. Period. I'm not going to vote for a third party. It's like praying to the saints.
Actually, Texas is in there as well. My concern with the Electoral College has always been that in certain states like Montana, one person's vote counts in Montana counts as much as 1,000 people in California. So it is disproportionate.
For the reasons.
Yeah.
I think if we just all go back and look at the Schoolhouse Rock video on why the Electoral College is important, why the Founding Fathers put it in, because we're a republic. There's been plenty of discussion on this. It all started because Trump won the Electoral College and he lost the popular vote. There was nary a word about the Electoral College in all the other elections. Bill
Well,
Clinton
I
lost.
think there
Bill
has
Clinton
been.
had a slim lead and he still won. nobody talked about dismantling the Electoral College when Bill Clinton beat George Bush out of the box, all that kind of stuff. I just think we stick with what we have. We work hard. If they do abolish it, you'll never see any sort of politician come to your town at all. They will spend all their time on each coast, and those are the votes that they'll get, and it won't make any difference how anyone here. That to me is disenfranchising my vote when it really doesn't count. One thing that I did want to mention, if you know, when was the last time a president was elected without carrying the state of Ohio?
I don't remember. I know a
John
Republican
F.
has never-
Kennedy.
Was that it?
1960. Yeah.
Yeah.
1960 was the last
I know a
time.
Republican has never won without carrying Ohio.
Exactly. Richard Nixon won Ohio. John F. Kennedy lost Ohio. There's never been a president that hasn't won Ohio. And it looks like if the Biden folks, if it happens, it happens. It'll be one of those times in history where, Ohio wasn't the state to go through. So.
Well, the 1960 was my first election, and I guess my vote didn't count that year. I voted for Kennedy. Well,
That's right.
thanks for a very nice discussion, and we'll see you all in 2 weeks.